You've tamed the voices in your head. You've put your courage to the test. Laid all your doubts to rest.
Hi everyone, welcome from your Intuition Queen to a new episode of Intuitive Queens podcast. Today I have the pleasure to have with me Monica Borgeau, who is an author, who is the author of The Change Code, and she's a business strategist and a consultant. Hi Monica, welcome.
Hi, Mara. Thank you so much for having me here today. I'm so excited to be here.
Me too. You have such an amazing story, and you just wrote a really, I feel it's a really important book for the time we are on right now. But I'll let you go with it. And before we actually talk about your book and how you came to talk about, to write about that, if you can tell us a little bit about your story and how intuition has played a part in your story, in your life, and I'll let you start with that.
Okay, awesome. So, I have been in healthcare for more than 20 years in leadership positions, but I've also always felt the need to kind of do other things. I have a lot of different interests and passions, and have also studied spirituality for more than 20 years and have done a lot of personal development, that sort of thing. And I started blogging back in 2010, I think, as a way to kind of express and really to kind of share the journey of going, through this spiritual development process and share some of the things that I was learning. And so back in 2014, I wrote an article called 7 Ways to Change the World. And I was really trying to just inspire people to maybe take some positive action in the world. And I got emails from people all over the place. This article was featured on Huffington Post and then has also been featured in an English textbook. And so it got a great response. And so it really showed me that there was an interest in a simple but positive, optimistic message for change. And so since that time, I've thought, oh, wouldn't it be fun to write a book? And so I thought it was one of those things that I'll maybe do one of these days, but didn't really have a plan to do that. And then at the end of 2016, I was just really feeling very stressed about all of the polarization that I was seeing in the world today, especially in the United States, which is, where I live. And I really felt called to do something, but I didn't know what. And so I really focused a lot on kind of prayer and meditation and asking really for guidance on, what is something that I can do that's going to create a positive impact in the world. And so I tried lots of different things, but toward the end of 2018, I really made a commitment to write this book. And it was just the most amazing, co-creative, intuitive process. And so I've always been a little bit intuitive, but this process really kind of helped hone that intuition, and it was very much a guided process. And so from the time I made that commitment to write this book, I just received signs all the time. I would see the number 11. In fact, it just became comical between my husband and I, because we went to Dallas, Texas to meet with Dr. Don Beck, which I'll get into in just a moment. But our flight number ended in 11. And then, we're walking up to the hotel, and of course our room, it ends in number 11. And so my husband was making a joke of it. He's like, of course our room number is 211. So there were just these signs all along the way. And then I also really used my intuition to help guide the process. And also when I would get stuck, and I have a journaling, an intuitive journaling process that I would use. So anyway, once I made this commitment to write this book, it was amazing because all of these doors started opening for me. And so I constantly was reminded, yes, you're on the right path. Yes, you're doing the right thing. And so almost immediately, I just attended church with my daughter, and I haven't been going for a number of years. And oddly enough, they announced this class on spiral dynamics, which is based on the research of a developmental psychologist whose name is Claire W. Graves. And I had never heard of it. I had no idea what it was. And I was listening to the description and I thought, oh, that sounds really interesting. And
Mm.
so I ended up going to the class and committing to a 6-week class, which is unusual for me because I've got a busy schedule already. But as soon as I got there, I realized, oh my gosh, this is supposed to be the
This is
framework for the
it.
book.
That's amazing. I want to stop you for a second before we get into it, because you talked about something really new. You said a few things that are really important. I want to kind of go back a little bit more.
Okay.
So there are two things that I want to ask you. First of all, when you talked about you working and having this need of wanting to do something else, like doing more, I kind of want to touch upon that and understand exactly how you felt and what kind of things. You also said you didn't really know exactly what, but there was this need of doing more. So because the doing more, it's something that I hear from my clients all the time, or from women that I speak to. I kind of want to hear from you. What does it mean to want more, to want to do more? That is one thing. And the other thing is that you said that you've been doing spirituality for 20 years. And I kind of want to know there, what brought you to that and how that helped you in your life. But yeah, so those are the two questions. I just told them both of them straight away, just because I don't want to forget. And I feel those are really important for the people that are listening to the podcast, because those are the questions that I get asked a lot of times.
Yeah, those are great questions. And I can't really explain the need to want to do more other than I have just always known that I'm supposed to do something kind of in broader service to the world more than just earning a paycheck. And that feeling just got really strong for me. And I think that really kind of goes to how my intuition works in a lot of ways. I know people experience intuition in different ways, but for me, it's this really deep sense of knowing that I can't really explain. And I would say I had that about needing to do something more. I mean, I've also done business strategy and coaching, which is on the side for many years, and so that's making a difference and helping people. And my day job, my career is also working in healthcare, which is making a difference. But it just felt like there was some greater purpose or some message that I needed to get out. And so I actually went to see quite a few people. I went to see an astrologer who said the exact same thing. She said that, and I don't remember where everything is aligned. I'm a Pisces, but she talks a lot about a Chiron, which is kind of your purpose in life. And mine was in my work sector. And just the way things are aligned for me astrologically, she was saying it was very clear that I had some kind of big message that I needed to get out. And so that might have been part of what was causing this frustration. And then I also had a hand analysis done at a local store here, which was incredibly helpful. I never
So you mean palm reading, right?
Well, it's kind of like palm reading, but they actually read the lines on your hand, and it's slightly different. I can't remember the difference, but she explained to me. And I have this, you probably can't see it, it's almost gone now, but there was like a big blue almost blood vessel right here. And so she was saying the same thing. She was like, whoa, you've got all of this creative energy and something that you're supposed to create, and once you do, that is going to clear up. And it is actually almost gone. Can barely see it. And so she was also just saying, there's this message that you need to get out. And I felt this need to blog and to write and do things that really didn't make sense. My peers in the corporate world were not doing these types of things on the weekend. They were out doing other things. And here I'm sitting at home in front of the computer writing and blogging. And so, I kept having these people kind of reaffirm this inner need that I had to write this book. And so anyway, once I finally kind of stepped fully into that and committed to that, it was it was amazing because I feel like things really aligned, and I knew I was doing the right thing. And so, so that was really helpful during this process. And then the second question was
about, you said about being spiritual for 20 years. You always been spiritual, and you also mentioned church, but you talked obviously about strategy and analysis and all that. So I believe that you kind of combine the two things. So I kind of want you to talk a little bit more, because I know I have listeners that are like religious, some that are not, they're more like spiritual, some that are both, some that don't know what they are, or they don't think they are anything. So yeah, like if you can talk a little bit about that, because I know that also is a topic in the book that kind of merges. And
yeah, absolutely. And definitely for me as well. So I was not raised in a church, but I did grow up in very rural Montana. So I spent a lot of time in nature as a kid, and my parents were really big on, you know, hiking together as a family and, you know, fishing and spending time along the water, that sort of thing. And so I always felt a really deep connection to nature. And I feel like I didn't really have an interest or really explore religion much. I got to go to a lot of my friends' churches when I was growing up, and so I was exposed to a lot of different kinds of religion, but it never really felt like the right thing for me. And then interestingly, I kept getting a copy of Deepak Chopra's book, what is it? The 7 Spiritual Laws of Success. And it kept coming into my life, and I would gift it to someone else because I thought, oh, I probably will never read that. But it kept coming back. And so I ended up with it on cassette tape. This was, you know, probably 20 years ago. Yeah, a long time ago. And I played it in my car, and I remember like not really understanding what he was talking about. You know, he has a very thick accent, and he also was using all of these terms, you know, dharma and all these terms that I had never heard of, but I just knew that what he was saying was true. And so I must have listened to that cassette tape 100 times. Like, I think I have it memorized. So I just kept listening to it over and over and over again, because it really resonated with me. And the more I listened to it, then I would realize, oh, I understand what he's saying there. And just gradually began to kind of incorporate those concepts in my life. And then the movie The Secret came out. So I learned, you know, about law of attraction and energy. And there was someone in the movie whose name was Mike Dooley. And so I started following some of his work. And then he mentioned Unity Church. And I remember thinking one day, I wish that there was a church that wasn't so rigid and that had, you know, was open to all religions and just kind of a spiritual, you know, for people who are spiritually seeking. And so then I learned about Unity Church. And so I found one in our community, which I didn't even know was there. And so I attended Unity Church for many years, which is a non-denominational church for those of you who aren't familiar. And they incorporate many different religions and beliefs and are just very open. And so I had attended that for many years, and then I had stopped going for several years now because I've been kind of doing my own practice. And I follow Michael Bernard Beckwith. He's got an online broadcast on Sundays, and just studying lots of different things. And so I wasn't going to church anymore. So it was really unusual for me to be there on a Sunday when they announced this class. But it just really resonated with me. And it was very clear that I was meant to take that class and that it was meant to be part of the book. And it completely changed my view of the world. And so I'm very grateful.
This is amazing. And thank you for sharing this, because I feel that the fact that you've been kind of going through different paths in the spiritual religious world kind of helped you to find the right tool and the right path in order to express this thing that you kept saying you had to do and you didn't know how to do. So I really love how the two parts of your life got together because they put you together in order to be able to do that. But I feel that it matches so perfectly, and I like that you talk about spirituality and religion in so many different ways, because I feel, like you said, religions are very strict, and I am Italian. I was born in a Catholic country, in a Catholic family, and I kind of removed myself from that because I felt it was too confined and too strict for me. And then I learned spirituality, and then now I feel like, okay, I have my own way. So I feel like this is a message that will resonate with so many people, where they don't feel they belong to a religion or a particular path, but they can experiment and learn more about different things. So it's kind of like giving permission to do that. So yes.
Yeah, I agree. And I feel like looking at lots of different religions and belief systems was really helpful for me. I think when things really began to change was when I got really serious about doing yoga and meditation and mindfulness, and starting to tap into my own intuition, because then I felt less of a need for someone else to tell me what I should be thinking, and really started to know and believe that I had my own answers, and that I could get my own answers. And that was an epiphany too in writing this book, is being able to tap into that. And when I got stuck, I mean, who do you ask when you're creating something for the first time? There's not really a lot of people to ask. I had a book coach on some of the technical aspects, but she wasn't a subject matter expert in what I was writing about. And so that was really helpful to kind of tap into that guidance.
Okay, I have one last question before you. I'm going to allow you to talk about the course and then the book, because it's amazing. But it just, I keep on having these questions in my head. How would you describe you listening to your intuition, you feeling your intuition? Because it's a question that I get asked so many times, and I know it can be different from person to person, because you say you're so connected to it, and obviously you co-created a book. So of course you are connected to your intuition. How does that work for you? How does that come out for you?
Yeah. So for me, I know when I'm feeling my intuition because I will have this deep sense of knowing. Like I'll tell my husband, I'm supposed to do this. I can't explain why. I just know. And I will feel it like through my whole body. Because I know if I just think I'm supposed to do something, like I'll still feel tension somewhere in my body or some kind of resistance or something. But when I'm really aligned and connected to my own intuition and guidance system, I don't feel that tension. And then I will also have the signs, like almost immediately it's always 11s for me. And it's just like clockwork. It's just there.
Right. Amazing.
Yeah.
I love that you have this specific number, because I'm seeing a lot of numbers lately. But yeah, I like that you have a specific thing. And okay, I love that, because I know for me it's a physical feeling, and then it comes with the inner knowing, but I can't explain inside. I feel it in my belly. I feel like a physical feeling. So but I know that everybody is so different, and I quite like to explain a little bit more. All right, so you take this course, which was about
It was called Spiral Dynamics, and Spiral Dynamics is based on the work of Claire W. Graves, who was a developmental psychologist who worked from like the 1950s through the early 80s. He passed away in 1986. But essentially, he was trying to determine what constitutes a healthy adult. He was a psychology professor, and people used to come to him and say, Dr. Graves, you've taught us all these wonderful theories, but which one is the correct one? And he could see issues with all of them. So he really felt like he didn't have the right answer. And so he set out on this quest of just gathering research. He didn't create this hypothesis ahead of time. He really just wanted the data to drive his conclusions. And so he began collecting data from more than 1,000 people over the course of 10 years. So they're kind of through their development to begin to understand how they develop and evolve. And essentially what he discovered is the underlying path for human change as well as societal change, which is so powerful because once we understand that path and those steps, then we can not only map our own developmental process, but we can also understand where society is and put a lot of context around some of the things that are happening today. So for me, it gave me a lot of comfort knowing that this was, the polarization that we're feeling and this tension is a normal part of our developmental process as humans.
Right.
Uh, and that we have this amazing potential to reach these next steps, which gave me so much optimism and excitement for wanting to help through this challenging time so that we can really achieve all of the things that we're able to achieve.
That's really, really powerful. And I feel this is something a lot of people that are very much aware, like you and me, and a lot of people that I had on my podcast feel this is kind of like where we're at,
Yeah.
where we are all coming together and creating like feeding this change that it's coming and it's gonna happen, but we need to kind of come together. And I don't think it's a coincidence that you came up with this book just now. I think it's because we are at the right time, although we might not know how to explain it, or we don't have all the resources, but what it's happening is telling us this is like the way to go.
Yes, and that's so true. I just felt that from the moment that I learned about this theory, because like you, I intuitively knew, and I know there's many of us out there who just know we are in the midst of a major transition in the world today. And so we intuitively know it, but we don't have necessarily scientific proof. And
Right.
so for me, this really validated things that I knew to be true. And so in studying it, I just had that inner knowing about it as well, kind of like I was talking about Deepak's 7 spiritual laws of success. I just knew that those were true. And I felt that same way about this theory.
Yeah, it's amazing. And the more I have conversation with other people for my podcast, or just in general with people that do what we do, it's like a general inner knowing. And some of us can explain it in more detail, like astrologically and this and that. And some others are just like, I just feel this is what's happening. And for me as well, like I feel I need to bring more women like us together and do more. So I'm doing what I can, but my idea, my vision, what I feel I should be doing is like bringing up all those women so we can help more people and create more change. So yeah, I love that you're saying this, because I feel like you are giving confirmation to me and to a lot of people.
Yes,
Yeah.
and that really is exactly what we need right now, because one thing I learned about this theory is that we are in the midst of a major paradigm shift. So just like what happened when humans moved from the agrarian era to the industrial era, that was a major paradigm shift. And that was kind of the last big major one that we went through as humans. And we are in that shift right now from a very scientific, materialistic era into one that's more humanistic. And so it's focused on healing the self, healing the planet. It's much more feminine. And so people who are sensing that are right on track. And we do need people to step into that and to help us kind of cultivate these new things that are emerging on the planet, because that's the direction that we're going. And more people are kind of waking up to that, or they're sensing it, or also society is just changing and moving in that direction. And so the more we can help create that environment and create that place for people to go who are feeling this frustration, the more we're going to kind of ease this transition into I feel like it's a much more compassionate, caring time, which is exciting for me. And then from there, once we build that, that's really just the framework for what Claire W. Graves called the second tier. And he wrote an article called "Mankind Makes a Momentous Leap." And so once we build this framework, we have this amazing potential to move into this second tier of consciousness, which is where people are able to start using both sides of their brain, and they're no longer driven by fear. You know, so much of our decision making right now is driven by fear.
Oh yeah.
And we're able to take the best from all belief systems. So we're not locked into one set of, you know, religious beliefs or dogmas or theories, that we're able to really take the best of all belief systems to create new solutions that we haven't even thought of yet, because our brains are able to function so differently. And so that's really what excites me, is this potential for human nature that we have, that, you know, we're helping to create right now. You know, people like you, Mara, with your podcast, and people who are willing to step up, you know, we're really helping to create that powerful new world.
Yeah, and it's so amazing what you just said. It feels like you're giving hope to everybody, because yes, to create that change, there has to be a dark moment where you see the worst, and then you know, it's kind of like in private life. Once you get to rock bottom, then you can only stand up and start to make progresses to change your life. And I feel like society wise, we are exactly there, and we can only move forward. And you just gave us so much hope about getting together and creating this new way of thinking and working with our mind and connect our body to everything, like what both of us are saying, connecting to the source, and therefore being aligned. And once you are in a line, it's kind of like you can't get it wrong, because you're only going to follow the right step. But right now, as you mentioned, we are so stuck into fear and stuck into the old beliefs that we still have so much to do.
Yeah, but it is exciting, and I see so many signs of optimism, and, you know, that we're moving in the right direction, even though there's days where you want to just, you know, hide under the covers because of the headlines, and I still have those days. But, you know, when I reconnect to that knowing, and really also begin to take action, you know, turn that stress and frustration into trying to create positive change and share a positive message, then I'm able to let go of some of that fear and anxiety as well. Just trying to be part of the solution.
Yeah, and I love that. So tell us now a little bit about your process when you wrote a book, because obviously you loved writing. So one person might think, oh, must have been easy for you to write. But I guess once you get into what you really want to do, again, you might have some fears, you might have some blocks, you might have some moments. I'd like for you to tell us a little bit about your process. You also talked about co-creation and about the actual book. What does it talk about, and where is Monica there?
Yeah, so it was an interesting process. There were times where it would just flow, and I would feel like I just had a really clear picture of what the book was going to look like and what I needed to include. But then there were definitely other times where I would hit a wall, and I had more than one day of tears and frustration, and I thought, why am I doing this? And it got to be, you know, tiring and stressful. It was a much longer, more challenging process than I thought. You know, for some reason I thought it was going to be easy, because I felt like I'm supposed to do this, right? It's gonna be easy. But no, that wasn't always the case. I mean, there were certainly those moments where, you know, it felt, you know, just very inspired and almost kind of magical and so exciting, because I could feel that I was really a sense that I was being guided to what I needed to know. But what I really learned, and I know this, right, but it's just practicing it, is that you have to kind of let go and surrender. And so the more I would try to control the process and like set deadlines and like it's going to be this way, the harder it was. But when I could allow myself to just surrender into the process, that's when ideas would come or blocks would move. And it just would never fail. But I had to do that over and over again in this process, because my nature is to, you know, I've been an executive.
Human nature. I think it's human nature. And I am in exactly like you. I know exactly that if I let go and I relax, things will come to me. But I think it's like we are so used to get into the working mode and do, and I feel like very much like you, when I am in the flow, like I'm like, okay, yeah, I got this. And then I stop being in the flow and I'm like, oh my God. And then I start thinking, I have to do this by then. And then that's when you said, you know, then things that get stuck because you're attached to the result and you're attached to your timeline, whatever else. And really what you need to do is surrender and let go and maybe go and have a little bit of fun.
Yeah, exactly. And that just played itself out over and
Mm.
over through this process. And I was actually given some really good advice from a lady here in Portland who works with a lot of authors, and her name's Teresa Pridemore. And she told me that you'll find when you get stuck in the book writing process, it's because either there's a lesson that you need to learn as part of this process, or there's something that you need to know to be part of the book. And
Wow,
I would,
that's amazing.
and it really did play itself out over and over again as well. Like I would just get stuck. I'm like, I'm ready to finish this book, and I'm just stuck, you know, and I wouldn't know why. And it was so much frustration. And then I would see like a Facebook post about somebody who was studying polarity mapping, which as soon as I learned about that too, I'm like, oh my gosh, that has to be in the book. And that's such a great and easy tool for people to use. But if I wouldn't have been open to that, and then I think it's being willing to follow those breadcrumbs, because
Right.
you know, it's like, I'm busy. I don't really have time to go down this rabbit hole. And sometimes it is just a rabbit hole. But when you're curious and you're open and willing to receive that guidance, it's amazing what will come your way. And so that was one point in the book where I was just stuck. And then I found this amazing tool that I now teach other people to use. It's called polarity mapping, because we have polarities everywhere in the world. You know, change, not change. That's a polarity, right? And when you learn to map and understand those differences and manage it, you come up with new solutions. You realize it's not just one or the other. It's the merging of the polarities is where the magic happens. And so I teach that in workshops and to my clients on how to use that tool, because that's how leaders are going to lead in the future. It's not going to be this polarized type of environment of just change or not change. It's really coming up with solutions that take the best of both.
Yeah.
And so that was a tool that I discovered when I was stuck, and just allowed myself to be open.
I love that you say this. This is amazing. It reminds me of the book The Alchemist from Coelho, because that's what he says, you know, like you have a goal, but if you're not ready to get there, the universe is going to put obstacles on you or make you go on a detour, because you need to learn a lesson and you need to prepare yourself to be ready to when you get to your goal, to the top of your mountain, whatever that is, which is exactly what you just said. And it makes so much sense, because it's what life is about. If you get that perspective, if you understand it, you get less frustrated about the obstacle. You're more open to the opportunities.
Yeah, for sure. And it was not always easy, but the more I kind of leaned into that and allowed myself to be guided. In fact, I had that mantra that I know I am being guided. And so that would help me kind of release some of that frustration. I also have a process that I used a number of times in the book, where I would be stuck on some aspect of, you know, how I'm supposed to do this. And so I just write a question in my journal, and then I really just allow whatever is going to come out. And so I don't like try to lead it with my analytical mind. I just allow kind of spirit to guide me and just write. And I was always amazed at the answers that would come out. And I still try to use that process whenever I get stuck in life, and just allow that higher intuition to come through. And so that was a helpful tool.
It's really powerful, and thank you for sharing that. I think writing the question and going with whatever happens to you, whatever message you receive is so powerful. What I do in my workshops, I actually ask the people to respond with the non-dominant hand,
Oh, yeah.
because that you're sure that's not it's not your analytical mind, because normally you control yourself with your dominant hand because you know how to do it. That's more freeing and it's more surprising. But I mean, like this is more for the people that are not so connected to their intuition, because I also write with my dominant hand and I ask myself questions like, what do I do now? What's the best thing for me? So thank you so much for sharing this.
Yeah, that makes so much sense.
Yeah. So what is your book about? Like, how did you, when you finished your book, what was the feeling first of all, and then what is your book really about?
Yeah, so I felt a lot of relief when I finished the book because I had just this inner drive. I felt like I needed to share this message and I needed to finish the book quickly because there's just so much happening in the world today. So I felt this inner sense of urgency to get this book out there.
Right.
And then the book itself, what it's about is called The Change Code, a practical guide to making a difference in a polarized world. And so in the book, I talk about why there is so much polarization in the world today. And so I cover some of the research on that and why things are the way they are. And interestingly, I found that individuals are not actually as polarized as we think. We're just in this cycle with the media, and our politicians are very polarized. And so we think we're more polarized than we actually are. But when we actually look at us on an individual basis, we're not that bad. And so
This
I
is
look
really
at that.
interesting.
Yeah, it was really eye-opening for me as well. And then I talk about where we are in the process of change, and I cover the work of Claire W. Graves. I go through his different layers and how we are in the midst of a major paradigm shift right now. And then I talk about things that we can actually do to help create this positive change and provide some really practical tools that people can begin to use. And so I cover all of that in the book, including some things that you wouldn't expect, like the importance of self-care, because if you are trying to create change in the world, and even, you know, like in your line of work, you know, self-care is so important. There's so many people pushing our buttons these days, you know, and news stories and just things that are happening in the world, that if we don't take really good care of ourselves, we can't show up as our best in the world. And then we're not helping anyone, you know, if we're off center and, you know, just all over the place and our own energy, you know, it's hard for us to be of assistance. So
yeah, that is so important and so right. And the self-care, and I feel also that a lot of people tend to care a lot about someone else, especially if you have a family, and they kind of forget. And this is a lot of what I do with my clients, women especially, tend to forget to take care of themselves first.
Yeah.
They go take care of the kids and the husband or whoever it is that they have around. And then there is work, and then there is the home to look after, whatever, and there is not much time left to really stop for a moment and really understand what is it that you're feeling, what you want, what you need, how you know you can take care more of yourself and love yourself more, and then you get depleted, and as you said, you can't make a change, personal or bigger that could be. But yeah, absolutely, it's such a big important topic.
For sure. And it's one that I still have to constantly remind myself to do as well, because it's not in our nature. I think those of us who are here to help and here to serve, you know, it's very easy to get caught up in all of that. And so I have a Facebook group, and I have self-care Sundays. And I was just realizing that I added that in the Facebook group as much to remind myself as to remind the other kind of change agents in my Facebook group that, hey, we actually need to schedule self-care time and make it a priority. And So yeah, so important. I'm
Yeah.
glad you're doing that kind of work as well. This is
Yeah,
so
and
needed.
for me personally, I realize I need that because I can be so focused, and when you like to do your job, you don't really think about working so much, and that you always have your mind thinking about something, and let me do this, and or maybe I have a call with this person, and you don't really put yourself to a time like when you are at work, like you 9 to 6, and then you're out.
Yeah.
And I know that is works for me when I get stuck. If I get
Yeah.
stuck and I feel like I don't have enough inspiration to write, I'm like, okay, why? Because I'm tired.
Yeah.
Because I haven't stopped doing this. Like I need a day off. I need, to go out and have lunch with a friend or whatever that could be. And that works for me, but I know that it's for a lot of women or general people, this tendency of doing so many other things and forgetting to really stop and just allowing yourself even to just do nothing, if that
Yeah.
means helping you to feel better and recharge your batteries and work better.
Oh, I agree with that just wholeheartedly. And allowing yourself to just do things for fun and
Yeah.
to be in joy, because I find when I get stuck that when I allow myself to do that, that's when the creative ideas come
Oh
in.
yeah.
Not when you're like sitting there, okay, let's be creative, you know.
Yeah, no, that's exactly when nothing happens.
Exactly, exactly.
That's when I write a sentence and then I rewrite the sentence, and then after 5 sentences I'm like, okay, I need to get out of here. I need to do something. I need to watch. One thing that I now switches my mind is watching an episode of Friends,
Oh
because I laugh, and then I'm
yeah.
like, okay, am I ready, or do I need a little bit more time? Because if I do need more time, maybe I go for a walk or whatever else. Like if I am in that kind of moment when I know I need to work and I cannot take too much time. But yeah, it's
Exactly.
really doing something that makes you laugh, that gives you joy, and combine that with a relaxing moment, like I don't know, taking a bath, having a massage, or that kind of things. You're right, and once you are in that relaxed space, then all of a sudden you start to have all these messages, and you know exactly what else you need to do.
Yeah, and it seems so counterintuitive at the time because you're like, oh, I have all this to do. I need to just power through. But
Yeah.
if you can just take those few moments, like you said, just watch an episode of Friends or something, you're going to be so much more productive and energized. And so, yeah, just making that part of your routine. And I find actually scheduling it. I use a certain kind of planner
Mm.
that has every week, like you're supposed to schedule in some self-care time. And so I try to do that as well as just fit it into the day.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, it's so important because, as you said, I think we have the wasting time mentality. If
Yeah.
I take an hour to go for a walk, do something fun, do nothing, read a book or whatever it is, I'm wasting an hour, what I'm supposed to do on
Yeah.
my to-do list. But actually, it really is. It's gonna help you to move faster on your to-do list after.
Yeah. So true.
Okay, and okay, so this is an important part of your book. What else is what are the topics you talk about in your book? Is change is such a big topic to talk about.
Yeah, so I talk a little bit about why things are the way that they are in this major paradigm shift,
Mm-hmm.
and then things that we can do to begin to create new systems. Because one of the things that we're seeing is that a lot of our systems in the world aren't working right now. You know,
Mm-hmm.
our government isn't very effective. You know, our social justice system, our education system. You know, we're still using the same educational system essentially that we developed 100 years ago
Mm.
or more to train people to go work in factories. You know, we're still using that same type of system, and we're finding that many of these things are no longer working for us.
Mm.
And so, you know, I feel like people are stepping into different realms that, you know, is maybe their area of expertise, but beginning to develop what are these systems going to look like in the future, because they're going to be totally different. You know, we're looking at some pretty major changes in society. And so That's why I feel like it's so important for those of us who are feeling this call to a higher purpose and to do more, to really step into that right now, more than ever, because it's such a critical time for us to begin to design these new systems and ways of being in the world.
Absolutely. And yeah, you're so right. We need to start to think about this and how we can change and what we can better, because as you said, the things like in the past cannot be working right now. Like people evolved, everything evolves, and you have to evolve the systems. Yeah.
Absolutely. And it doesn't mean throwing out the old systems. We still need technology, and we still need science and medicine that was developed. But there's new ways of using these tools in this new paradigm that, those of us who are stepping out and being pathfinders and looking for new ways of doing things, will help to create these new systems. And so for those of us who are creative, I feel like it's a really exciting time to be alive, even though it can be challenging. There's so much opportunity for creation. And I feel like those solutions are not just going to come from the logical mind, which is what's really been stressed under this previous paradigm that's very scientific, very industrial. It was very much a rational based type of system. But now what we're looking at is really the solutions are going to come from innovation and intuition and this new way of thinking that still uses the rational mind, obviously, but it brings in this whole new element of different ways of looking at the world and different ways of thinking. So I find that really exciting.
I am getting super excited just listening to you. Do you have a copy of your book that you can show to the people watching?
Of course I do. So it's called The Change Code, and
where can we find it?
So I have a book website called thechangecode.net, and on thechangecode.net you can watch a little video about the book, and there's links to the book on Amazon and IndieBound and barnesandnoble.com, all different places where you can buy the book. I also have a free assessment tool, so if you want to take my free assessment about these different developmental layers, it'll give you a little bit of understanding about where you are on your own path. And then there's lots of other just great resources, other podcast interviews I've done, things like that on the website as well. So, and then I have a Facebook group. If you go to facebook.com/the change code, there's a group on there called Agents for Change, where people literally from all over the world are gathering to, right now we're going through the book, we're doing a book club, but we also just share lots of great resources about being part of this change and things that you can do. And so it's just an amazing group of folks.
Amazing. And tell me, it's also on Amazon for the people that are here in Europe?
It is, yes. In fact, the person who wrote the foreword for my book is from Byron Bay, Australia. His name is Steve McDonald, and he's a futurist. So the book has done really well in Australia, but also in the UK. It's been very popular in the UK, and then of course here in the US as well. So.
Okay, I feel this is a book that everybody should read. So I put all the link in the show notes. So for everybody that wants to check it out and watch your video and know more, but I feel that you are in this business of change or not, it's something that will be good to get to understand a little bit more for what it's coming.
Yes, thank you so much. I appreciate it. There is a free chapter on the book, on the website too, that you can download. So if you're just wanting to see if it's for you, feel free to download that free chapter and just check it out as well.
Okay. Oh my God, Monica, we got to an hour already. I feel like I should be talking to you about this more. It's been such an amazing conversation. I'd love to talk more, but we need to wrap it up. So before I let you go, I would like for you to give a tip to the people that are listening and watching, based on your experience and your book, something that they might come out with.
Yeah, thank you, Mara. I really appreciate being on this show. And I would just encourage people to step into their intuition and to continue to build their trust and confidence in their intuition, because there are so many messages coming at us right now. And so the more we realize that we have those answers within us and begin to tap into our own potential, the more we're going to be able to solve these challenging problems. So thank you for the work that you're doing in the world to help us tap into this intuition. So
My
powerful.
pleasure, my pleasure. I just get so much joy, and as you said, I feel I have to do this. So and I feel I need to bring women together. We need to rise up together and do something. So I am extremely honored to have you on the podcast. It just so I just get so excited to talk to people like you that are in this new way of thinking and doing, and I feel we're gonna do so much good for the world that we have to stick together.
Me too. Thank you so much. Thank you for all you do.
Thank you, and thank you so much for being here today. Oh my God, that was such an episode with Monica, wasn't it? I loved it, and I absolutely adore how she gave us hope about the future and how we should all bring a change in this world to make it better. So I hope this has resonated with you. If it did, please do like it, share it, subscribe to the podcast. If you want to get in touch with Monica, please check the show notes. And if you're watching from YouTube, all the details will also be below, but the show notes are probably the best way for you to get her details. And if you want to get in touch with me, please do follow me on Instagram, The Intuition Queen, Facebook, The Intuition Queen, or go to my website, theintuitionqueen.com. You can download my guide, 7 ways to feel more confident in your career. And if you want to book a session with me, a free session with me, just go on my website. There is like a button, or you can click on the link that I will put on the show notes to book a session with me. And the way I work is very intuitive. So we'll be talking about what's going on with you, and what is your energy right now, where you think you can go, you want to go, and if you don't know it, we'll figure that out, and I will feed back to you on how you can do this and what I feel from you. And yeah, that's all. I'll talk to you very soon, next episode. Thank you so much for watching and listening.
Before. Your heart is full and wanting more. Your future's at the door.